Welcome back to another episode of the When It Matters podcast. I'm El Noble, Founders Associate at Mesh, and today we've got a very special episode to celebrate International Women's Day. We're doing a special series celebrating and spotlighting some of the incredible women in the accounting and finance profession in the UK. I've got a wonderful co-host today for the first time I've ever had a co-host before.
I feel privileged.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come and do it with you. So I'm Hilary Lewis. I work at the Digital Accountants Club. I'm the community manager over there. And yeah, I think being able to bring women together is very exciting. It's the thing that I'm most passionate about, and giving that kind of empowerment to the finance space is so important.
We are here with Ami Copeland. Amy, I'll let you do a little intro to you. And
I've got to try and match that now. So I'm Ami Copeland. I'm the CEO of the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. We are a very female-dominated space, actually. We've got like 78% of our members are women. They often run businesses, very sort of female-led businesses, progressive employers. And yeah, I love being in that kind of women-centric space.
Amazing. It's something that really struck me when I was at the Lucas with all these amazing, like, badass women entrepreneurs and bookkeepers like celebrating each other. And I remember thinking, God, this would be such a great podcast episode. So here we are, 360 moment, it's happening. So let's start a little bit about your kind of journey and how you got to being the CEO of the ICB. And I really want to dive into like what that role actually looks like, particularly in terms of cultivating this incredible community of women and other bookkeepers as well. Yeah, do you want to give us a bit of the backstory?
Well, the backstory. The backstory is quite long. I'll try and make it juicy. So sort of strange journey into it, I suppose you could say. All started in 1996 when my mum and dad set it up. So this is, in a sense, my family business. So it's kind of always been there since I was about 12, I guess. And I never wanted to work there, I guess, in the beginning. Didn't even occur to me. And then I started working, had a few freelance jobs, and my parents very kindly said, "You know what? You could come and work the mail machine in your time off." And so it kind of started there. But I was actually working in kind of branding and TV. I did some jobs for the BBC and things like that. Worked as a presenter very briefly, and really liked filming stuff. So I love being behind the camera. But that's sometimes it can be quite tough, quite long hours. And when I had kids, it just didn't suit my lifestyle anymore. And that was the moment where I thought, you know what, ICB really makes sense to me now, partly because I sort of understood those pressures for the first time of being a woman trying to get back into work after you've had kids, wanting something that's a bit more flexible. But you don't want, the number of members that I've spoken to that said, when I came back into work after having kids, I was given some flexibility, but I was told point blank then I wouldn't get a promotion. That people didn't, you couldn't get to a certain level in the business if you were working flexibly or you wanted to work part time. So that struggle is real, and I sort of finally it all clicked into place.
And I think, yeah, what you spoke about kind of, yeah, being a mother and kind of going back into the workforce afterwards. I've heard so many really like powerful stories about how the ICB has kind of enabled that for so many women and had this incredible like second lease of life in their careers. And I guess, Hilary, because obviously you're in a kind of community building role as well, and you had a similar experience, right, moving back into, yeah.
Very much so. After having my children, I sold both my businesses that I had previously when my children came along, and I almost thought, being like at that point being self-employed, I'd felt unemployable. I didn't think that would have been an opportunity to go from the beauty industry into finance. But when the position came up, I found that finance itself, when I landed in where I am, I couldn't believe that there weren't more women in the space, because it didn't make sense to me that women wouldn't be here when you've come from a predominantly female industry, landing in a predominantly male one. I just instantly felt like I needed to hunt out the other women, and listening to the experiences that so many women had returning to work after maternity and just being exposed to the environment, it was really eye-opening. And I think once you've listened to what's going on, if you're ready to kind of jump in and try and make change, and you have to use your voice, don't you? And that's where I think that having that community space and building that community where women feel that they have got a voice is so important. And obviously the ICB support that massively, don't they? Giving that power back to women
Mm,
to take control and expand on their knowledge
mm.
is a powerful thing, isn't it?
So powerful.
So do you feel
Yeah.
like you've had quite a lot of pressure in terms of, like, you've obviously got your parents' legacy to uphold?
Mm.
How has that been, like, taking on that challenge?
There's this great line, isn't there, in Succession, where he says, "I'm turning a tanker." So sometimes it feels like that, sort of change, sort of trying to change something that's quite sort of well established. You know, there's a lot of love for the co-founders, and so yeah, it has been a little bit challenging, I suppose, at times. But you know, it's I think family businesses are incredible. There's a lot of sort of honesty that comes with it. You know, everyone's kind of, you know, if you're doing something wrong, people tell you, which is nice. And I quite like that sort of. We're quite a small organization as well, so you know, we're supporting all these quite often sole traders, bookkeepers who are running their own businesses do tend to be quite small. We don't have any kind of top tier, mid tier firms really. Like a top tier firm for us is say 5 or more people in the business. So we're a kind of micro business working with micro businesses, and those micro businesses are supporting micro businesses. So I guess, you know, all those kind of small business challenges are very real, while at the same time running something that's actually got, you know, a huge amount of, you know, essentially we're selling credibility. We're really well known. We're a global organization. We've got members in pretty much every country in the world. So that I think has been kind of as much of a challenge as sort of that balance between that small business focus and this kind of um, kind of empire, leading an empire at the same time. You shouldn't say empire, should you? But
No,
um,
I think it is an empire. It's also 150,000 members, right? Do I have that
around the world,
right?
yeah. That includes students as well. So a lot of our students, because they're learning flexibly, you know, we're very flexible with the exams and the training, because part of that is that, you know, if you give people flexibility and control over the way they learn, the way they take the qualifications, you're immediately reducing barriers.
Mm.
But that said, what it means is we may have students that are studying with us over, you know, 5, 8, 10 years, even though you can do your qualification very quickly. We have lots of people who ring us on the first of, you know, the first week of September and say, my youngest kid's just gone to school and I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. So
Oh my
I'm
god.
like actually weirdly getting like little
Goosebumps.
tingles on my
Yeah.
on my legs, but it's so nice to see people, you know, this is like a long-term project for them, and they can do it when they're ready.
Yeah.
It's
And
rewarding, isn't it, to get to see others around you excelling
Yeah.
and growing and expanding on their own journey. It's
Mm.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
it's
yeah, I think anytime
powerful.
you're sort of in the kind of business of skills, I suppose, and sort of status, it is, yeah, you know, no matter what someone's doing, just getting the skills because they want to feel more confident, or getting skills because they want to get a promotion, or be it, you know, maybe even set up their own business. Yeah, it's pretty rewarding stuff, actually.
yeah. And I can imagine, you know, if you just had your first baby, or whatever, and you're kind of ready to go back to the workforce,
Mm.
and you're kind of like, I've heard, I mean, I don't know exactly how kids myself, but I've heard that there's a lot of challenges around like identity and kind of knowing like what happens now for me, like what do I do now? And I guess, what is it about the ICB and the bookkeeping profession that, you know, makes it this incredible kind of new lease of life for new mothers, or yeah, or women looking for a career change in general? Yeah.
I guess it must be a bunch of things. I think partly it really is the community, because they are so
Mm.
supportive. So you get this kind of welcome in.
Mm.
And that's really important, particularly if you're changing career or you want to run your own business for the first time in your life. I mean, bookkeeping gives people this opportunity to run a business when they haven't had any experience doing it. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are like feel that kind of that noob energy. They just feel
Mm.
like they're in a, you know, completely new environment. So I think that welcome is really important. And I think it probably is something to do with that kind of change of career kind of feeling.
Mm.
People don't, unfortunately, yet leave school and dream of becoming a bookkeeper, and probably also likewise an accountant. But there is a slightly more traditional route of, you know, school leavers going into these placements, whereas bookkeeping is like people, you know, people suddenly just think, my God, I want something for me, and you know, this is how I'm going to do it. And yeah, and that I think also for ICB, because we're a slightly smaller organization, we're younger than a lot of the other professional bodies. So we're
Yes.
30 years old this year.
Happy
which is
birthday.
quite
Congrats.
exciting.
Yeah.
Thanks. Same age as all sorts of exciting things like eBay. I think the first flip phone came out in 1996.
I can't believe
And so this is giving us a good excuse to get all this sort of nostalgia back in there. But
it.
we're quite young on the scene, and so a lot of people also, we're not a household name yet. And so people just kind of have this revelation. They go, oh, I've trained with these people, and I realized I really want to be a bookkeeper, and I've discovered there's a professional body for it. And it seems like everyone's really nice. And and it's just like this kind of whole new dawn for people.
Yeah.
I think that sense of community is a big part now, especially in the digital, like we're in such a digital age, having that sense of connection that's bigger than just, not feeling so lonely is so important. Is there anything that you would say that you do differently to kind of create that?
I'd like to say it's all us. Yeah, it's all ICB. And I mean, certainly it was designed that way. So I think when my folks first started it, they said that the reason they did it really was because they felt that bookkeepers weren't getting the respect that they deserved. So they were like, bookkeepers don't even think of themselves as professionals, and the whole rest of the industry doesn't consider them professionals either. So they really felt like they needed to be the voice of bookkeepers to kind of raise these people up and say, actually, this is the most fundamental part of the accounting the whole accounting world. So let's give them some respect, let's give them some credentials, let's give them the support that they need. So I suppose because we were sort of founded on that principle of kind of raising people up, I suppose we're always looking for ways that we can get this kind of community voices heard. And we go to all these other kind of industry events and we're like, where are the bookkeepers? You got to get bookkeepers up on stage. So I suppose it's that sort of trying to kind of nurture people, but really it's, bookkeepers are just great people. They really care, and I think they care about the work that they do, but they also care about each other. And it's International Women's Day, right? We've got to, we can't ignore the fact that 78% women in a community does change the nature of that community. People are very open and honest, and they're not afraid to sort of say, this is where I went wrong, and I want to help you learn from that.
Yeah, it does feel incredibly sort of collaborative and not competitive in the slightest, right? Which I feel like for me, it feels quite new coming into any industry, and people just wanting to kind of support each other as much as possible and not kind of, compete. And I guess for you, 150,000 members and, which is big, obviously it's around the world, but you've at the same time managed to cultivate this like, I don't want to use the word family because I feel like that's kind of overused, but honestly, kind of close to that, right? I feel like everyone kind of knows each other. We've got other like members of the ICB here today who already know each other and they've met through the ICB. How do you kind of balance, I guess, being the CEO of a, to be honest, I think I'm going to use the word empire, like big, really big organization with all these members, but keeping this kind of close knit feel? Like, how have you kind of balanced that? How do you do it?
Yeah, that's tricky because actually I really fought against it. I used to hate it when people said, oh, ICB's got such a great family feel. And I would, because you've got that kind of, imposter syndrome. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the fact that we're a family. I don't want people to think I only got the job because I'm, part of the family. But then I realized that's exactly what people love. Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess I would just, I totally want to kind of give credit to my parents because I think that's sort of the business they always ran. My dad was always very big sort of, you've got to project something, prestigious effectively, to gain that sort of credibility. So that was kind of his job is sort of external on the stage kind of thing. And then in the background, my mum was always running this very kind of, sensitive kind of business. So like internally, just really looking after your people, basically.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it is sort of somehow that sort of balance. They created the balance.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to not mess it up afterwards, perhaps.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, doing the most incredible job. Yeah.
Do you think that maybe because it started a family run, you've got that kind of husband and wife team element of a solid foundation, perhaps, that has
and sort of I guess mutual respect. And of course my mum actually was essentially kind of returning to the workplace as well after having kids. And actually weirdly I have this memory of walking down the street and them saying they just got this office in Bloomsbury Square when they started ICB, and I remember saying to my mum, oh, so you're just going to be like working all the time? And I don't have any other memories at all other than this one of like my own reaction to her and this sort of sense of like, I don't know,
Sweet.
proprietariness of like, oh, but you're my mum,
Yeah.
which is just so odd, isn't it? But yeah, so I guess for her even it was like part of this journey of, you
She
know,
like embodied it.
empowerment and
Yeah.
yeah,
My goodness.
women's lib.
Because it's that sense of equality, isn't it? If you've got a husband and wife driving something together and they're on an equal footing,
Mm,
that opens up a very safe space for women within the
mm.
community to kind of feel that they still have a voice, don't they?
I mean, what I love about the bookkeepers themselves is they're running these businesses that are, I said kind of earlier, they seem to be really progressive because they're running their business usually because they are trying to find that flexibility, whether they've got, you know, childcare responsibilities or, disability related needs or something like that. And then they do that. They also do that for their employees. So, somebody said to me, yeah, all my team work 10 till 2. I was like, really? 10 till 2? They're like, yeah, their mums, they've got to go pick up
Yeah,
the
do the
kids.
store on.
And that was like a real sort of like aha moment, like, oh, people are
Mm.
working 10 till 2. This is exciting. Or not working Fridays.
Mm.
They're very sort of intentional in the way they run their businesses, which I think is just so inspiring. And also, the number of people who've sort of said the trigger point for me was when my boss said I couldn't take time out to go and see my kids, Christmas
Yeah.
play or whatever. And you just think, why are these employers doing this? They're
Mm.
not going to,
A
not
lot of
going to last.
women do feel like they have to. It's got to be a choice. It's all or nothing, isn't it? Either you're a professional woman or
Mm.
you're with a career, or you're a mother, and you can't. There's no grey area. It's like you can't combine both. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that there are more companies, because more women are now in business and
Mm.
that are supporting more flexible working,
Mm.
that is slowly changing. But
Mm.
I think the more you see, then it's going to just drive that change, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. I think sometimes though, I mean, I'm certainly guilty of this myself of just being like, I'll just do everything.
Mm.
And I don't know if that really helps. You'd be like, well, I'll do all the mumming and all the like bossing and and I'll just, if I need to, I'll just work till 4 a.m. in the morning. And um, I don't know what other kind of 4 a.m. there is, but the one that's in the morning. And I think sometimes that doesn't help necessarily. And like who are you like modeling that for? That's not
Mm.
It's
my
not
kids.
sustainable, is
My
it?
kids have definitely said to me, I don't think I want to be a CEO.
Oh,
It's
really?
like, oh, whoops, okay, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you not think that perhaps like automation and tech can now play, like the way
I
that
would
things are
hope
coming
so.
in, that are
I don't
playing
know.
more of a role in?
I personally think ever since AI sort of exploded onto the scene, I just feel like I can do everything now. So I'm just like, I'm going to do everything. You're just like, I've got a great idea. Okay, I'm going to like talk it through and then I've got a plan and then I can, I don't know. I just personally, for me, I think tech doesn't save me any time.
Oh,
It
really?
inspires me to do more. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I think so.
That's it's finding the balance, I think, isn't it? Of like
Yes,
getting the
I'm not
automations
good
in
at balance.
place.
I think probably is what it is. See if you're not good, but so it's like yes, you can create stuff like faster, but then you want to create more things.
Mm. And having the trust, I think, to hand over to someone else sometimes plays a vital. Like so many business
Mm,
owners are terrible at like they
mm,
have all that control initially,
mm,
and they find it really hard to then pass
Mm.
those tasks on to someone else,
it's very
whether that's
true.
AI or someone externally.
And particularly if you're running a kind of service business like bookkeeping and accounting,
Mm.
where your clients are effectively buying you because they
Yeah.
like you, and then that does make it really difficult. I think personally, I'm very good at not really delegating, but at sort of enabling people to do the work. And I'm perhaps sometimes too hands off because but you hire people because they're brilliant,
Yeah.
and I just really want to get out of their way.
You got to trust in your own decisions, haven't you?
Yeah,
As a business owner, that you should think, well, I should be able to make enough of a good decision that I've hired the right person
yeah,
to
yeah.
fulfill
So
that role.
once you finally figured out how to hire people,
Yeah.
yeah, it becomes easier. But then I think I'm just sort of feeding them more things I want them to do, basically. Just, oh, but this is cool, and let's do this.
It's an exciting time, though, isn't it? When you're growing
It's so
and as rapidly as you guys are,
mm,
it's kind of the direction is, well, what do you think will be next? What is
mm.
next? But what's the plan?
What's next? Well, yes, exactly. Well, I've been just reading about the SaaS apocalypse, which is perhaps presumably is quite overstated, isn't it? But this idea of are we going to be interacting with software in the same way as we do now? Are we kind of this term, what is it, in disintermediation, where essentially you're taking away, the need for this kind of software interface, because we'll actually just be interfacing with the AI, and then it can use all of our tools for us. And then I thought, well, in a sense, that's always what people are saying. Technology is that's why technology is a risk for the service professionals, because essentially, are you disintermediating, the bookkeeper potentially? But I think really bookkeepers have never been the intermediary. I see them as the integrator. So it's more like, I suppose if you want to be the kind of professional that is really just sort of moving data around, you've definitely got a fight on your hands, I would say. If you want to be the kind of professional that's actually sort of connecting more than just data, you're sort of connecting reality and like dreams, and trying to help businesses move, try and help them grow.
Yeah.
I
Be
think
more
we've
of an
got a
advisor.
huge opportunity. And really, I think all this technology is just playing so nicely into the hands of bookkeepers, because bookkeepers are so tech positive.
Yes.
This
Partly
is
because they're smaller businesses.
I'm so impressed by how unbelievably like tech savvy everybody is.
Yeah.
I'm feeling quite inferior. I need to like up my game.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
And
I guess, so you take the average bookkeeper and you compare it to the average accountant. But a lot of it, I think, is probably because accountants tend to work in larger sort of groups.
yeah,
They can, and in larger businesses. And then, tech is just harder to change and develop. Whereas bookkeepers are like, I'll pick that up today and I'll figure out how to use it. And again, coming back to the community, they just share all the top tips. So, oh, well, that person is using it, so I know I'm going to like it.
Yeah, I think that plays a massive part. I know certainly inside the Digital Accountants Club, the conversations drive a lot of the decisions. So, if someone's had a really good experience with a software provider, they'll rave about it. And the same goes as if they've had a negative experience with the software provider, they'll be like, oh, but they're very, I guess it's that accounting bookkeeping head. They're quite level-headed, so they're quite happy to go, well, this is what I liked. This is my pros list, and this is my cons list.
Yeah, systematic, pragmatic.
Yeah, and that's what you want, isn't it? Especially from a business point of view, like that's what you want from your bookkeeper or your accountant, to have a level head and be able to keep you on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for tech companies to be speaking to all of
so
the
much.
users.
so important.
Not just the ones that are in the big firms.
Yeah, but I think what you were saying, like the future of bookkeeping feels particularly bright right now, I guess, because that's such a good point about how they don't have to worry about the bureaucracy and the change management, and they can be super agile and be literally right at the frontier of like all of this tech. And I guess the whole reason actually we started the podcast is because Mark, my CEO, and I kind of realized that accountants and bookkeepers are so like they're such incredible sources of knowledge and wisdom of like running a business in general, not just the numbers, because they're doing it themselves as sole practitioners, and they see everything. Like the numbers don't lie. So overall, do you feel like, is this the best time ever to become a bookkeeper? Do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. If anyone's on the fence,
Yeah.
definitely go out there and become a bookkeeper. Yeah. We did this really lovely. We kind of started off the year with a bookkeeping discovery day. We had sort of 1,000+ people join us, and there were just people in the chat being like, I'm an aspiring bookkeeper, just wondering if this is my year. And we're like, this is your year. Do it now. And this whole making tax digital thing, we've been just sort of coining this phrase, bookkeepers are key to MTD. But it's really true, because it's not a change to tax. Tax is fine, once a year accountants, go for it. But what we're saying is, you've got to do digital bookkeeping, you've got to do it regularly. And bookkeepers are like, yeah, that's what I've been saying all this time. So that's a really cool revolution as well. I mean, is it the best time to start a business now? Because you know that you're going to have that regular bookkeeping. You actually might understand that, that money you've got in the bank, you're not supposed to spend it, etc.
Yeah, it's so true. You were saying it's so bookkeeping is so integral to MTD. Like the bookkeepers are literally at the frontier of all the small business economy in the UK, right? Like they're kind of like the backbone for all of this.
It's been said many times by
It's
me
been
as
said-
well,
yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, I was like, am I quoting someone? I'm quoting you.
You say that a lot, probably.
And I guess, do you think that that perception is like the kind of the power of the bookkeeper is being like better recognized? I think the ICB's obviously played an incredible role in that. And actually the Lucas, I feel like was such an amazing night, kind of really like promoting the kind of the power of the bookkeeper.
Mhm.
Was when you set up the Lucas, was that did you set that up, or was that something that was
We set that up.
set up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess was the kind of message of the Lucas to kind of really, yeah, kind of spotlight the power of the bookkeeper and what they can do.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
So the Lucas being the Oscars of the bookkeeping world,
Yeah.
and everyone gets a little statuette of Luca Pacioli.
And
who,
they're weighty.
They're
Like,
weighty.
yeah.
Yeah.
Proper.
Dangerous implements, if you don't if you don't use them responsibly, like bookkeeping itself. Yeah, so it's award shows are just incredible. I mean, you should, every community should have this kind of, annual event where you celebrate and you kind of spotlight the impact. Yeah, I really like the Lucas. I mean, I usually cry at the Lucas at least once. And it is really exciting, whether you've just started at bookkeeping, you've become student of the year, you've got established practices, got employers getting involved.
Yeah.
But those
What's an Irish
nominations,
question that I've forgotten?
those nominations mean a lot, don't they? I think for that public visibility
Yeah.
and the authority it gives those bookkeepers that win them, that they can actually say, not only am I, I've got these letters that I am part of, I've actually won an award to say that I'm a damn good bookkeeper and I know my stuff and I'm doing really well. Like it builds so much trust out to the public, doesn't it? Like I think they're very important, and to be able, because they've got that credibility, the ICB has that backing behind it,
and they just need it. Like you say, they are a little bit misunderstood, undervalued, I suppose. One of our members said to me that she was like, I knew that I was right, but I just didn't feel confident enough pushing back on the accountant who was telling me that I'd done something wrong. And that's sad, isn't it? But that still happens. And so that's why she decided to come to ICB. She was just like, I do need that piece of paper behind
that
me.
validation.
And, we'd love to live in a world where you don't need that validation, but obviously it's really important to get those qualifications. And sometimes people who are really experienced say, do you know what, I don't think I need to do the exams, I've done it all. And I was just like, do you know what, you will feel so much better once you've done them all, particularly if you've got that bookkeeping mindset where you are kind of naturally a bit of a perfectionist. But they don't, they are kind of, they're certainly undervalued. And I was sort of going around and asking accountants what kind of skills bookkeepers should have. And I was so surprised to hear that a lot of accounting firm owners said, we'd love our bookkeepers to have more empathy so we could get them out in front of clients. And I was like, why the heck are you sleeping on that one? Of course bookkeepers have empathy, because they understand the business a lot more than somebody who's just coming in and kind of looking at overseeing and doing a bit of a tax return. Didn't mean to minimize that in any way, but they're so close to the numbers, like you said. So I think quite often in firms, bookkeepers are sort of, they're not really given the exposure that they should, or the kind of value that they should. And that's, obviously I'm on a mission to say, well, if you've got bookkeepers, you should certify them, give them a qualification. I hear also there's a lot of churn in accounting firms as well, because, people that they get to do the bookkeeping are actually on a journey to, becoming a chartered accountant, which is fantastic. But then you're constantly trying to find good bookkeepers. Well, actually hire bookkeepers instead of hiring accounts technicians, or hiring, a trainee tax specialist.
This is something that because obviously the Digital Accountants Club, it's accountants, but it's all finance professionals. So we actually have like a lovely pool of bookkeepers within the club, and that the accountants and them there's a lot of cross integration, should we say, between, and that's what you kind of want, that nice little ecosystem where everyone's on the same page and learning, and you've got that level of respect between the the two industries. Everyone kind of puts them under this umbrella, don't they? But obviously you've got different skill sets for both roles, and they're both important. It's just getting that communication, I think, between the two to see that they actually can work quite nicely
it's
together.
tricky, isn't it? Because I always sort of joke at conference, one of my jokes at conferences is that accounting professionals are all kind of on the spectrum. But meaning, there is this sort of hybrid. And I think in the UK, we're sort of slightly less distinct. There's no kind of regulatory distinction, is there, between accountants and bookkeepers? Whereas places like Australia, for example, it's really distinct, and you get your qualifications directly from the government. You're either kind of a BAS agent, which means you're like a bookkeeper, or you're doing the tax. And so there is this kind of weird kind of murkiness, I suppose, between the roles. And you're right, you kind of, nobody really quite knows, are we separate or are we together? But ultimately, more collaboration
Yeah.
is always a good thing, and particularly with things like making tax digital. So that's really interesting. I think for the first time, you've got that sort of tiered system within HMRC where you can have a professional doing quarterly updates, you can have a different professional doing the end of year stuff. So that's sort of interesting. And how is that going to kind of play out in the accounting world? I don't know really. But I mean, certainly if you are going to be working sort of like double agents like that, you're going to have to speak to each other more. And I think sometimes bookkeepers don't necessarily communicate in the right way. I wouldn't say it's all, the accountant's fault. And also at year end, everyone's busy. So it's just like, how do you find those kind of touch points throughout the year to sort of collaborate and understand each other? And when a bookkeeper accountant relationship works well, it's just absolute magic. And,
Yeah.
There's a Venn diagram where it's like bookkeeper accountant, and in the middle, there's the client.
Yeah.
And the client wins and everybody
Mm.
wins. That's kind of the dream, isn't it? Whereas I think so often it doesn't feel like that in reality.
I think my Venn diagram is the accountants, the bookkeepers, and then DAC in the middle. So we work really well. So it's quite a nice space to bring the people, like both sides together. So I think for us, we've definitely seen, and our client, our members have said that actually that's one of the biggest things they've got out of the community, that they've got access to each other and that level of transparency between the two, so that they both they have that understanding of who's doing what when, and can get that communication. And it helps.
And if you make some adjustments, just tell me what they are so I can update the books. Yeah, that seems like such a given, doesn't it? But that so often doesn't happen.
Yeah, and like, how do you see the relationship between like bookkeeping and business advisory? Because obviously we hear that accountants are moving towards that all the time. But I remember thinking about this when I met Lara Manton. Shout out, Lara Manton.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. And she, with her clients, I mean, she really is like a end-to-end advisor. There's nothing she doesn't know. Like when we're helping her clients, we don't even need to meet them. We could just talk to her. Like, she knows everything. I know, And do you see that more and more, that bookkeepers, because they are so in the weeds and the numbers, that they are also becoming business advisors, or they have been all along, or is it becoming more of a formal thing? Like, what's your take on that? Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that I think about all the time, by the way. So this definitely keeps me up at night. So I wish I could tell you that there's a really easy answer. I just to sort of talk briefly about making tax digital, when I've sat on all these kind of HMRC working groups, and HMRC has been sort of wonderfully collaborative and get hundreds of people in a room. We all break off into working groups and talk about how to make making tax digital work. And I've been so surprised that so often some of the bodies and some of the people in the room will say, well, you've got to find a way to protect the information, because a lot of bookkeepers are not going to know anything about this, this person's, pension, or the person's other business or something like that. And they think because they're doing sort of year-end tax, and they've got to know about everything. They're just like, well, we know about everything, but the clients won't want the bookkeeper knowing about it. And I'm like, are you kidding? They're giving this bookkeeper, and they shouldn't, but like logins to their bank accounts, and they know the family situation, they know the pets, they know when the kids are off on a half term, etc., etc. So yes, that became a sort of real shock to me, because my experience of it is absolutely that these bookkeepers are embedded in these businesses and completely integral, and really this kind of human API effectively for these businesses that are kind of juggling all their sort of needs, their desire to kind of sell more things, or their sort of their bank and their software and their tax return, and their and even to the point where bookkeepers will say, yeah, my clients call me after they've spoken to the accountant and ask me to sort of translate. Sometimes they're in tears, and so I just think bookkeepers essentially have got all of the skills, I would say, and the relationships and the sort of tech to completely move into that advisor role. Some bookkeepers don't want to. Some bookkeepers absolutely love doing a bank reconciliation and actually don't want to talk to clients, or don't want to talk to the business owner. And that's okay up to a point. I mean, if you can keep doing that while all the technology is kind of doing that faster, good for you. If you've found a way to kind of maintain that role, great. But I think lots and lots of bookkeepers are and it starts small, doesn't it? Because I think advisory is just about conversations, and I think that's why
Right.
bookkeepers are better at it, probably.
Yeah.
And also, making tax digital, I think, has really kind of illuminated this kind of reality where there are a lot of once a year professionals that are still dealing with that sort of paper bag, bag of receipts thing.
Mm.
And those are the ones that I think are going to have the problem, whether that's, whether they call themselves a bookkeeper, an accountant, or whatever, a tax person. I think that once a year thing is probably going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting. I think so. Jerry always says that you have two sorts of firms. You have like a frills firm or a churn firm, and I think figuring out where you are in that, as in what you're giving, whether you are just you can do one tax return a year and that's or not one a year, but
Yeah.
that's all you're doing for your
For the-
client. Yeah, or whether you're going to be providing all these extra services. And I think it's understanding your own business and where you sit within that is important, whether you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, I guess.
I think a lot of accounting firms probably could benefit from doing bookkeeping well and getting their bookkeepers out there as like their client, success managers effectively. Kind of using that relationship and that kind of closeness to the books. And, real-time data is magical.
And the clients are going to benefit, aren't they? Personally, when I had my businesses and I was on the phone to my accountant like regularly, especially checking for things that you don't necessarily need to do it very often, like maternity leave or like the more tricky things that you think I want to get this right. I think being able to have those skills to have that nurturing sometimes is what you need, because you feel so vulnerable as a business owner.
It's so true, yeah.
And having someone who you feel they have got my back. I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but I think most people don't care what's done on the actual bookkeeping and accounting side, as long as the advice they've been given is correct and everything's been done on time.
Yeah, it's done on time.
That's what they pay you for, isn't it? To get it done and not to worry as a business owner.
But it's scary, isn't it? That's why people sort of keep their head in the sand and they leave their tax return till the 31st
last minute,
of January.
yeah.
And because you're kind of embarrassed. It's like when you see those pictures that people have got this huge like growth or whatever on their arm. You think, why did you leave it so long? It's because they're scared that they've really messed up, basically. So it's just, you're absolutely right. You need that trust, don't you? And I think bookkeepers are all about trust.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, I just think like out of all of the amazing accounts of bookkeepers I've met, there are so many who are ICB members, and I know that if I was having like a financial nightmare or just any like business nightmare, I would call them and immediately I'd be like, oh, you know what, it's gonna be fine. Like it's gonna be fine. So yeah, I really hope that the bookkeepers, continue to move into that kind of client service manager role. I think so many of them, from what I can tell, would just absolutely thrive. And I guess to kind of wrap up, because I'm conscious of time, so this year's International Women's Day theme is Give to Gain. So it's all about kind of collaboration and reciprocity and support. And I feel like the ICB embodies that, in so many ways. So two questions for you. What's one thing you're kind of proudest to have kind of maybe given to the accounting or finance world profession? And what's the kind of biggest thing you think you've gained in return?
Gosh, I'd love to say something really poetic. I don't think I've got it in me though. I think probably, hopefully, sort of. I think, yeah. So essentially, as the CEO of ICB, I guess my biggest contribution has got to be this sort of what I'm hoping is a responsible stewardship of what is now, a really important part of bookkeepers' lives, and trying to kind of propel us into this very kind of bookkeeper respecting, bookkeeper driven kind of future. So I guess it's got to be that sort of, hopefully just running ICB well and trying to looking after our people. I think it's amazing working in an organization, and not a not-for-profit organization at that, where people, we can't offer people the biggest salaries or the biggest holidays, or there are no perks effectively, other than this sort of the spirit of doing something that means something and kind of makes a difference. So I'm always just so chuffed to bits that people continue to work at ICB and love it. And and people all the time, like, we're on the Teams message being like, oh, look at this post that somebody did online. They've just
So cute.
somebody posted they'd just got the keys to their office, and they were like, this is such a big deal, we've moved out of the home office and now we're like in premises, and we just love that kind of stuff. We're always celebrating our members. So yeah, just that's not me having done that really, I suppose, but yeah, just keeping it keeping it going, I guess. And what has it given me? I mean, ultimately, ICB, really, I mean, ICB's been everything to me, I suppose. It's been, God, it's been in my life such a long time. And yeah, it's given me, it gave me that opportunity to get back into work and feel really confident in my skills. Because having babies literally shrinks your brain. It's tough. You don't get any sleep. And it's, parents who can handle it are just incredible, right? So anything we can do to get people back into work. So for me, it's certainly that. And it's I think we are quite, I said this thing earlier to you guys, didn't I? I think psychological safety when you're in work is really important. So I think we kind of as a team give that to each other.
Mm.
And we just, we trust each other and we believe in each other. And I think that's something that we've sort of probably just kind of copied off bookkeepers, because I think that's something that they do really well. So I think that will go on forever, basically. I think to sum up, I think, yeah, that's ICV has given me a lot, basically. And yeah, God, at some point
Gorgeous.
I'll find somebody I think is good enough to replace me. But it's gonna be tough, because we're gonna try and get somebody amazing to do it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Such a lovely answer. And I guess to finish, is there another woman in bookkeeping, accounting, finance kind of adjacent who is doing something really cool, some really amazing work that you would like to shout out and spotlight for Just Women's Day?
Countless thousands all around the world.
Yeah.
I actually, right now, I would like to say a big shout out to Helen Bauer,
Mm.
who ran a successful practice called Ada Bookkeeping. And she's got this great story where she was a kind of sole trader, sole practitioner bookkeeper, and then, managed a team. And that's sort of that amazing kind of journey, because that's hard to kind of transition like that. Sold the business to Fresh Financials and not long ago. And she is now, and do you know what the guys from Fresh Financials said to me? They had, of all the businesses they were acquiring, hers was the one that had the best organization. They were like, she is so systematized in this business, and as a result, they've got her to come back in and train the rest of their these businesses that they've kind of co-opted together. And she is also running this amazing course for us, which is the Kickstarter course, and it's all about sort of what do you do after you're qualified to actually run a successful business, and how do you have these conversations with clients, and what does bookkeeping actually look like in the flesh, in reality.
Mm.
And so she's just so fun. She's really fun and kind of humble and kind of disarming, which is nice. And I think that's what you get in bookkeeping. I think sometimes it's quite intimidating. Some of these people that wear sort of, the kind of regalia, and they've got little medals and stuff, people that are the old guard of accounting, because it goes back hundreds of years, and they're, paintings of these amazing people that kind of shaped our professions. But in bookkeeping, we don't have that. We've just got these amazing people like Helen Bauer who, want to share everything and just be really real with people. But I think she's really making a difference to the next gen, and that's huge.
Love that.
That's special to see.
Yeah, really special. Helen leading the charge. Amazing. Well, Amy, thank you so much. I've absolutely loved this episode. Oh my God. What an amazing way to kick off our International Women's Day series. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you to my fabulous co-host.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thanks.
That was super
Thank you so much
fun.
having me.